Hello everyone, and welcome back to Autonomia, the show where we bring ideas from the libertarian left to everyday people, and foster conversation on what we believe in hopes of proving that we all have far more in common than we are trained to believe. My name is Hayward, and I am your host. As always, our intro and outro music come from a song called A Bigger Cage is Still a Prison by System Failure. If you'd like to look up this song, the band spells System, C-I-S-T-E-M, for political reasons.
There's nothing I want more than to sleep under the night sky, hear the animals as they go about their lives, feel the fire warm my body, feel the mud under my toes, but tonight this cell keeps me enclosed.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. This is going to be a pretty weird episode of the podcast today, and by weird, I mean it is what you might consider wildly outside of the general subject matter, of this program. Usually I like to talk about left ideas or my ideas or perspectives and how they relate to different types of politics, ideas on liberty, freedom, resistance, and how to make a better world. So this is out on the very edge of what I would normally talk about, because it does have tinges of how to make a better world or liberty or human decency, that sort of thing. And so it's something I've been covering a lot in both local and national media lately. I've been speaking with my buddy Lee Elsey, also my friend Chet, who has a weekend show on our local station, 94.9 News Now. I have also, thanks to Lee, had a chance to speak with both him and Chet on the national show that he guest hosts a few times a month or so. And so that went out to over 80 stations. And this is something that has hit me in a very deep way. My wife was scrolling through TikTok, as she often does, because I, believe it or not, I assume you will believe it, am quite boring to live with. Being stuck around a stuffy and opinionated academic all the damn time is not everyone's idea of a good, fun time. Anyway, she's scrolling through TikTok and comes across this story about a mother who is very, very popular on TikTok and has a huge following. And what was more interesting to us, of course, is that this account had a lot of allegations around it, a lot of allegations that seemed very serious. And when we looked around the account, based on what our own eyes were seeing, it seemed like a very suspicious set of circumstances and behaviors. It seemed to us like something was very deeply amiss. And Chet and I, at first, broke that story a few days or so before everything started to catch fire with Rolling Stone and Fox News and Daily Dot and Newsmax and blah, blah, blah. More and more people have started covering it, and obviously I'm not going to take credit for that breaking out of the story, because I'm sure all of these people also had things in the works for a few days or so. So I don't think we introduced that story to anyone, but perhaps we brought some additional angles worth considering. Anyway, enough patting myself and Chet on the back for that, because that's pure speculation. So things have been getting very hot for this story. The mother who runs this account for her 3-year-old daughter has since turned off comments and deleted a number of the more controversial videos. Anyway, so what seemed to be happening is that this mother was seeming to curate content and cater to the online pedophile community. It seemed like her videos were getting a lot of attention from that community, and it seemed her choice of video thumbnails and what to and not to upload has a suspicious angle to it. There are more than a few instances of what I would call, at the very least, deeply questionable uploads. And so when that happens once or twice, sure, that's normal. People make mistakes. The internet is full of people who haven't fully grappled with the dangers that exist on the internet. And if that were to happen once, maybe twice, I wouldn't be so concerned, but it seemed to happen quite a bit. Anyway, if you'd like to get into the details of that, I can certainly send the links of all of my media appearances in relation to this story, and that will allow us to have a more full understanding of the story. I'm not trying to rehash the whole damn thing all over again. What I'm actually here to do is to offer my first reactions to a statement issued by the mother who runs this TikTok account. And it is about 3 minutes long, so it's not a huge statement. And most critically, I was disappointed by it, mostly because it missed, at least for me, a lot of my chief grievances with that account and how it is managed. So I think for her, this may serve to quell some of the outrage around her account. But I do think at the end of the day, again, at the very least, there is a case for profound negligence. And whether or not that's legally actionable is not really my concern, because as a devoted as a devoted anarchist, I am neither a law knower or doer, as Robert Evans likes to say. So I'm not really focused on what is legally actionable here. I'm focused on this being a very, very powerful cautionary tale as to the dangers of the internet and how you, if you are a parent or soon to be a parent, can have an informed choice on what you expose your children to online. So we're going to get into the statement now, and I'm going to try to respond to it more or less point by point in an effort to try to shed light on why I think that there's still a lot here to explore and why I think that her statement is inadequate. So, let's have a listen and we'll see where we go. Thank you.
The past few months have been incredibly distressing, and I've learned a lot. What started out as a hobby to make a digital scrapbook for my daughter Wren grew into an interesting role for me as a single stay-at-home mom.
So the first block of this that I'll tackle is where Jacquelyn, this little girl's mother and the owner of the account in question, says that this originated as a hobby to make a digital scrapbook of her daughter's life. My first response to that would be, that's weird. That's very weird to me. I don't know why you would do that. A scrapbook doesn't need to be digital, and in fact some might argue shouldn't be digital, not only because it can just get deleted sometime and you lose all that content, and maybe a scrapbook is something you're supposed to have in your house, something that is showing your daughter's life as it progresses to relatives, friends, family, maybe future boyfriends, if you're one of those parents that does that insufferable thing. That's what scrapbooks are supposed to be for. They're not for the public, and that attitude, while not necessarily nefarious, it represents at the very least just a misunderstanding or disregard for how the internet operates, and I don't think that is a great place to start. You know, saying I wanted to make a public scrapbook of my daughter's life for the internet to consume as they will is sort of weird. But, you know, maybe I'm just old because I'm like, I don't know, maybe 6 or so years older than her. That makes me old, I guess. Anyway.
Wren is my number one priority, and her upbringing and safety are my top job 24 hours a day. This account has allowed me to provide for my daughter and to set aside money for her future.
She says that her daughter is her number one priority, and I'm sure she believes that in one shape or another, unless she is truly as bad as some people think that she is. But I am not a mind reader, as I have repeatedly maintained. She says her upbringing and safety are her top priority 24 hours a day. And again, I don't know that to be or not to be the case, but I think if she has an understanding of what safety and security is, she probably wouldn't be behaving in this way or taking the sorts of risks that she is taking. I will also mention that there has been a lot of talk about how Wren has a chipped tooth, and maybe that's associated with all of the candy she gets. But again, I'm not that person. All I can do is reference that those allegations and those questions do exist, but those are not my focus for this particular discussion. She talks about how this job, as she calls it, has allowed her to support her daughter and has allowed her to put away money for this daughter's future, which, God willing, she has. The tricky thing here, this isn't like me being a construction worker or a podcaster trying to get information out there or put products out there that are the product of my own labor and then giving that to my child as something for their future. She is monetizing her child and putting her child at risk to the attention of some of the creepiest parts of the internet in order to benefit her possibly sometime in the future. That, to me, is a decision that, by definition, is exploitative. She is taking a decision that is not, in my opinion, hers to make, and making her daughter work for her and her daughter herself, who, as a reminder, is 3 years old. So I don't really think there's a lot of legs to that way of talking about what's happening here, because I think she's being exploitative by definition, even if it turns out that she is not being willfully sexually exploitative. There are other means of exploitation, and I certainly think she is being every bit of economically exploitative to her daughter.
I'm not sure how this conspiracy theory got started and spiraled out of control.
Well, I have an idea. Maybe it started because people were realizing that all these creepy comments are occurring and they didn't get any sort of traction when they said, hey, you're doing something dangerous, maybe you should consider changing your behavior. But instead you just kept going and then proceeded to at some point make a video satirizing or challenging the hate comments that you're receiving, like stop exploiting your child. Well, maybe that's how it got started. Maybe it was your complete disregard for other people warning you about the dangers that you're engaging in, trying in good faith and assuming the best of you that maybe you just don't get it, and trying to help you get it, and you continuing to ignore those people. Maybe that's how the conspiracy theory got started, as you call it. And maybe how it got out of control is because you ignored it and continued to ignore it and continued to ignore it, and people, in the face of you ignoring them, tried to figure out some sort of rational explanation for how you could possibly behave this way around someone that you say you care about, and you very well might.
What you need to know is that no law enforcement agencies I conferred with, including the FBI, have found any proof that my daughter's likeness appears on inappropriate websites. These rumors are 100% false.
Next, she talks about how she's spoken with tons of law enforcement agencies about whether or not Wren's image has shown up on child abuse websites, or I forget what she calls it, inappropriate websites. Let's not mince words here. It is what it is. I tend not to use the word child pornography anymore because someone pointed out to me that it sort of obfuscates what is happening here. So the new thing that people say is child sexual abuse material, because a child cannot willingly engage in that sort of content, and therefore, by extension, it has to be abusive. So that's just a refining of language, trying to make more clear what is actually happening. It's trying to make the language more precise and more reflective of the situation. So, according to her, and this is her statement, law enforcement agencies haven't found any evidence that Wren is on those sites. Now, that presupposes that they know all of the sites out there that exist, and it presupposes that they've actually gone through the effort to look for that. I can't speak to whether or not that has occurred, but I can also speak to the fact that there are tons of sites on, or I should say pages, on places like Pinterest or TikTok or Instagram that, while not explicitly pornographic in nature, certainly seem to have an unhealthy mental relationship with this little girl.
If anyone has real tangible proof, please contact me immediately. My email appears within my TikTok profile.
I don't know if that is actually something she means, because she urges people to send an email to her through her TikTok account, which again has 17.3 million followers. I find it sort of unlikely that she's going to respond to anything that has that big of an audience potentially reaching out to her. But hey, maybe she actually is. Maybe she is. And if you find that evidence out there, send it her way, I guess. I would caution you that the places you will find that sort of content on are illegal for you to visit, so it's a little bit difficult to definitively prove what is or is not showing up on those sites. But you'll notice how she specifically focuses on that angle of the allegations against her and leaves a lot of other ones unaddressed, and that's what we'll get into as this video goes on.
What is true, Wren is a happy, healthy 3-year-old. The videos we film together from my account a couple of hours a week are fun and lighthearted.
I'm not a doctor, I can't comment upon that, but there have been more than a few people wondering why she apparently eats so much candy or so much junk food. But again, that's not really my primary focus, because if feeding your child a unhealthy diet was a crime or neglect of some kind, most of America would have their children taken away. So we'll just leave that there for the moment. But she says that their videos are happy and lighthearted, and that is, unfortunately, sometimes part of the appeal for these more creepy elements of the internet. But again, if the videos were only happy and lighthearted and didn't sort of tread into some questionable content territory, a lot of people probably wouldn't be quite so angry. And a lot of people wouldn't have the impression that Jacquelyn is catering toward these interests. And again, whether she is or is not intentionally, the overlapping occurrences of questionable content make a thinking person feel uncomfortable with that level of occurrence. Makes people think that something is going on, and that's not great.
TikTok analytics show that my followers are 76.8% female. That's more than 13 million females, including lots of moms. And I thank you for watching and for your interest in my family.
Now, I am not a big user of TikTok, but the first thing I'll bring up, I guess, is to say that if TikTok is like any other site, you will probably get a chance to select your desired pronouns. So that may have some bearing on that. I'm not saying big, but there may be some factor that is taken into account there. Also consider that I am not familiar with TikTok analytics, and perhaps only she has access to those numbers. So she may or may not be telling the truth there. And if she is, I would say, hey, that's just under 25% of the followers of your 3-year-old identifying, at least, as men, which translated is right around 4.1 million men. So again, this is what I talked about in Chet's show. Even if she is correct here, and even if our original presupposition that the majority of the followers are men, which is what was put out a lot during that time, is incorrect, by her own claimed numbers, we're talking 4.1 million men, which, if you're talking about that kind of a number, you are statistically going to have a certain number of what she calls creeps in that number. What I would remind people, and most of you probably won't need this reminder, is that 4.1 million self-identified men following a 3-year-old girl, in its own light, to me at least, is a little creepy. That is a little strange, and perhaps that's some entrenched misogyny that I have, that I don't trust men, much less that many men, around my daughters. So again, maybe this, as Jacquelyn calls it, is a difference in parenting style. But I will be deeply uncomfortable with 100 men looking at photos of my daughter. That is strange to me. That is culturally weird. And again, perhaps that is some entrenched distrust of men that I have for whatever reason that perhaps may be unjustified. But by the law of big numbers, you're talking 4.1 million. You're going to have, at the very least, just by background statistics of society, thousands of pedophiles in that group. And that should give Jacquelyn pause. But it seems that it doesn't.
What baffles me is that rumor spreaders express such passionate concern for my daughter, yet law enforcement has found zero real proof about these untrue allegations. Creating videos talking about scurrilous rumors that my 3-year-old daughter appears on porn sites isn't proof. Repeating false information over and over will never convert into fact.
So, yeah. She talks about she's baffled by the passionate concern while also not trusting her information about the police response. In the past few years especially, a lot of people have become convinced that the police are not particularly trustworthy and or reliable when it comes to pursuing criminals and delivering justice. But that's just sort of our political background in this country right now. That's sort of common belief among younger people. And TikTok folks are going to be generally skewing younger unless I've missed something big here. So that's sort of a cultural background that might inform the distrust of what's going on. As far as the passionate concern about her daughter, I would definitely argue that is fueled by her lack of real response and, in fact, taunting of the people that are trying to warn her about her dangerous behavior by saying that they're hate comments. So, again, I don't think that that's particularly convincing. And again, we are going off of her word here as to whether or not she has spoken to law enforcement. If she hasn't, and they haven't come up with anything, if she hasn't, and by extension they haven't come up with anything, then she might be getting into some sketchy territory here if she claims that she's spoken to them and she hasn't. But I will say it is not entirely possible that these people, law enforcement, know every single child abuse website out there. And again, because Jacquelyn operates in this sort of gray area of the law where she's not putting out anything that is, as far as I can tell, technically illegal, but in my opinion, deeply unethical, she is going to have the content showing up on sites like Instagram or Pinterest. And cyber sleuths have taken the time to track down and document these things, and these screenshots of these accounts are publicly visible on the Wren Elenor Reddit. So if you are interested to go have a look at that, that is a very active community that puts out a lot of interesting stuff and commentary on this ongoing situation. So I'd really encourage you to look at that to try to get a deeper idea of what's happening, especially if TikTok really isn't your bag.
Doing so is wrongfully smearing my daughter's name and unjustly damaging my reputation.
She does go on to say that the perpetuation of these so-called rumors are wrongfully smearing her daughter's name and damaging Jacquelyn's reputation. This is what some people in my community call a big oof. No one, literally no one, is smearing Wren's name. The people in this community are seeing Wren as a victim. They are not smearing her name. They are saying she is being exploited by her mother, economically certainly, and possibly also sexually. That is not a situation where we are smearing Wren's name. We are certainly damaging Jacquelyn's reputation, but we are damaging Jacquelyn's reputation by pointing out what appears to be questionable behavior. In the totality of my media appearances in relation to this story, I have repeatedly said, I can't read Jacquelyn's mind. I don't know what she is doing with intention versus just being negligent and or ignorant on how the internet works. I can't know that. What I can know is that it seems very apparent that based on the repetition of this sort of behavior and the resistance to changing it, she is seeming to be aware of and not care. That is my opinion, and that is constitutionally protected, so enjoy that. I have that opinion based on what I'm seeing, that it seems very likely that there is something amiss happening here. And what level that is might vary based on what we find out. But unfortunately, it seems like we probably can't find out truly what is happening here. Which is why, again, I focus on this being a very strong cautionary tale for people. This should be a warning for everyone out there who is considering trying to become an influencer off of their child.
What I've learned from this ordeal, I realize I should have spent more time reading the community's comments. With millions of followers, this is no easy task.
So, she realizes, she says, that she should have spent more time reading the comments from the community. Now, I'm not quite sure if this is directed at the creepy comments, as she calls them, or the people calling her out, because it seems like she was abundantly aware that people were calling her out, because she made a video that she later deleted saying that she was getting hate from people about exploiting her child. So, it's hard for me to believe that she's saying she should have taken the time to read more from the community that is trying to warn her, because she probably wouldn't have made fun of them, and she probably would have changed her behavior. So I guess she's saying she should have read her comments more for creepy comments and gotten rid of them, which to me doesn't necessarily get rid of the underlying fact that creeps are viewing her content. It just removes the evidence that they were there in the first place that the rest of us can see. So to me, that's not really smart. And again, as a political commentator, as a political activist, this is very similar to the sort of thing that we see around the homeless population. So we're not going to solve homelessness, but we're going to jail the homeless, or we're going to shove them all to the very edges of the town so they don't bother our beautiful gentrified landscape. That's sort of what I'm feeling here when I hear her saying that she should look at the comments more. So that's not great.
If these false rumors have prompted parents to rethink how they let their kids be involved in social media, that is a good thing. Honor and act upon your personal decisions, but please, do not mom shame me because we have different parenting styles.
Don't mom shame her because they have different parenting styles. So, yeah, again, I believe this is a very powerful cautionary tale, and I believe that you should not have your kids online. I've been speaking about this since our first appearances in media, and a lot of folks have brought this up as well because I think it's very important. Children cannot consent to that level of risk. So there is a strong ethical case, in my opinion, that children should not be on the internet, especially not in this capacity. If you were very enterprising and wanted to look me up, you could probably find a couple of pictures of my kids in family photos with all of their clothes on, doing nothing but just standing there smiling or being goofy in some way. That's the level at which I'm broadly okay with your kids being online, because I don't think that there's a good case for exploiting happening there. I don't think that that is something really to worry about. But you won't see me posting videos or photos of my daughters in similar positions as to what Wren has been posted in, and you won't see me trying to monetize my daughters to line my pockets. And to me, that is nakedly exploitative and really shouldn't be done. And I understand that that's not legally a problem, because legally that's kind of hard to define, which again is why I've been focusing on the ethics and morals of it rather than the legal angle. I think Jacquelyn is, broadly speaking, legally in the clear unless we find something utterly damning somehow. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think, though, the rules of ethics here are flagrantly violated, and I think there's a good case, as I've said, for your kids not being online at all. And so, yeah, I'm going to mom shame you, because at the end of the day, exploiting your child for money, bare minimum, and using their likeness on the internet to generate money for you is exploiting your kid. And to me, exploitation is not a parenting style. It's not. Like there's gentle parenting, there's authoritative parenting, there's authoritarian parenting, there's permissive parenting. Those are parenting styles, okay? Exploiting your kid for money is not a parenting style. Abusing their lack of ability to consent, to risk their safety online, is not a parenting style. I'm sorry if you think that it is, but perhaps maybe look at some parenting manuals and you might find that that style is not there. A lot of people have the opinion that putting kids on TV is a form of exploitation. A lot of people have the idea that putting children in pageants, a lot of people recognize that as kind of an exploitative culture. But for whatever reason, the appearances on the internet haven't caught up as being in a similar vein. And I happen to think that they are. But again, that's my opinion. I'm giving a lot of my opinions here because that's what I'm allowed to do. So yeah, I'm going to mom shame you for exploiting your kid because that isn't a real parenting style. Sorry, not sorry.
I look forward to making more videos with my daughter, and I am committed to making changes when I turn my account comments back on. I will filter them to remove offensive comments and report and block accounts as necessary. Online safety precautions that will remain in effect include disabling the ability to download or duet our videos.
She says she's going to keep posting about her daughter, and she looks forward to putting up more videos, and she says she's committed to change. And to me, this is kind of weird because she's sort of referring back to when she was saying, hey, I should have read the comments more, implying maybe she could have learned something. So when we get to this stage here, she's saying she's committed to change, implying that she has seen the light. I think rather than seeing the light, she has seen Rolling Stone, Fox News, Daily Dot. There's a bunch of other right-wing ones that I don't remember because I'm not a right-winger. A bunch of people have been covering this. I think that's probably the light that she saw, is that other people were seeing the light of what she was doing, and she was getting some blowback for it. So now in order to do some sort of damage control to keep the money coming in, she has to try to make some cosmetic changes. This, to me, again, as an activist, is sort of like when the Ferguson Rebellion was happening. People were really up in arms, in some cases, literally, against the way policing is run in this country. And Barack Obama put out I think it might have been an executive order, barring police from having anything larger than 50 caliber weapons and not allowing them to have bayonets, among a couple other things. So for those of us that don't understand military gun stuff, bayonets are knives that you attach to the end of your rifle that you can impale people with. So Barack Obama, in an attempt to win public favor by having some concessions, some changes in order to win back the public support and try to bring trust back to the institution of policing, said that you're not able anymore as police to have knives on the end of your rifles. But, if you don't know what a bayonet is, you might be like, oh, great, maybe the police aren't allowed to have those anymore. My reaction was, holy shit, they were allowed to have bayonets to begin with? Like, what? The other one is 50 caliber weapons. And the wording was very interesting because they said they're not allowed to have anything larger than 50 caliber weapons. For those of us that don't know, a 50 caliber bullet with the powder behind it is about as long as your hand, just, average. It's about as long as your hand. So that's considered what's known as an anti-materiel weapon, which is to say you shoot that at a car and it stops. People use those to shoot vehicles. Airplanes in World War II used those to shoot down other airplanes. You hit a person with that, you're going to blow them in half. So they said you can't have anything larger than 50 caliber, meaning, subtlety of language, they can have those still. But a lot of naive people were like, oh, great, yeah, they can no longer have anything larger than 50 caliber, which rules out, 20 millimeter anti-aircraft equipment? Like, what are you talking about? I'm wandering here. What I'm trying to draw a point to here is that she's saying she's committed to changes, and those changes happened in light of a big controversy, in my opinion. And she says she'll filter and block people as necessary. And again, that's up to her discretion, and that's also not changing the underlying problem. She is still going to have those people looking at her page, but she's just going to cover the tracks that they are there. That, to me, is not a solution. So she then goes to detail what these changes are going to be. These, as she calls them, online precautions that will remain in effect are removing the duet function. So again, I'm not a TikToker here, but my understanding of the duet function is that you can grab someone else's video, put it alongside a video of you, and stitch them together so you basically have a vertical split screen of two different videos playing simultaneously. A way which these might make sense are like a reaction video, like if you're watching someone doing something very funny or play a video game or something, you can put them on one side and you're on the other side doing whatever you're doing. And you can see how this might have a dangerous effect for someone like Wren. And you can also see how this might have a reputation damaging effect on someone like Jacquelyn. But this to me is not a really serious change. I mean, sure, it's great, but all this is going to stop from happening is that there's evidence that there are creeps following your page. All this is going to do is push similar behavior further out of the public eye. It's not going to stop it. The other thing that she says is she will stop people from downloading her videos. And again, while this is a good thing, I would remind people that there are other ways of getting videos. You can just film your phone screen with another phone. That's like the lowest tech way of doing it. But anyone that plays video games might know that there are a wide range of screen capture softwares out there that will literally just, within your computer, record what is happening on your screen and save it. So again, in video game culture, this is very beneficial because you can film everything that you're doing and post it online because people like video game walkthroughs for some reason. That's something that can still happen. So again, what this is going to do is it's going to deny people of the evidence that the videos are being saved through TikTok because they've removed the most easy way to save it. But you're not going to stop people from getting that same content, but you're going to stop us from seeing that it's happening, which I guess is her hope in taking some of the heat off of her. So these, what I call cosmetic changes, are not going to make a huge difference.
Stopping sexual predators is a job for law enforcement. The TikTok community, including parents, can play an active role in this effort by forwarding real evidence to help the authorities catch the creeps. Let me say it again. If you have real evidence, please contact me. I would do the same for your child. Thanks for listening, and you can read the full version of my statement on my Instagram account, TikTok Wren. The link is in my bio.
And she talks about how stopping sexual predators is a job for law enforcement. And unfortunately, that job's made a lot harder by the actions of people like you, Jacquelyn. Also, I would say putting all of the load on law enforcement to stop sexual predators is not a realistic way of solving the situation. And maybe, again, this is the anarchism in me talking right now, but I'm not really faithful in our government's ability to stop abuse of any kind, much less child abuse. But again, that could be my own personal bias talking. Stopping sexual predators, legally speaking, is within the purview of law enforcement. But if you're just putting bait out there, I'm not sure that you're not partially culpable for that. Because if nothing else, you're making their job a lot harder by being so reckless with the likeness of someone who isn't you. It's your own child. You're not putting yourself at risk. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. And you're old enough, I assume, to understand and consent to the damages and dangers that exist. But again, based on how you are using your child, I'm not sure that you're able to understand and fully consent to dangers. Because if you are, that doesn't speak very well of you. So, yeah, sure, it's law enforcement's job. But, man, you're playing a role here. Willingly or accidentally, you're playing a role. She says the TikTok community can help by forwarding any real info out there to catch the creeps. And that's going to be a lot harder, Jacquelyn, to forward any real info because you're preventing saves from happening within TikTok and you are preventing, presumably, a lot of these creepy comments from existing for a long time, so it's going to be harder for people to put attention on these accounts. So I guess you're saying that people should go to child abuse websites, which I'm pretty sure is illegal to do, in order to maybe find content of your kid. So doing your job for you, your job, which was a job that you created by engaging in this relationship with TikTok. I don't know. This is all very weird. She says if you have any real information to contact her. And thanks for listening. So that's the video. And just, man, this to me is an entirely inadequate statement that just sort of obfuscates and ignores a lot of the real complaints that are happening. She challenges 2 allegations that have been made by the community, which, in my opinion, are some of the less important allegations, and especially the numbers one, okay? If I got the numbers wrong because I believe some other people out there, that is on me, okay? Bragging, in my opinion, saying, well, actually, no, it's only 25% or so male. That's not a brag. I'm sorry, that's not a brag. Okay? If I got the numbers wrong, that sucks. I'm sorry, because I like to be correct on things as much as I possibly can. But that number is probably something only she has access to, unless, of course, you're a hacker of some kind. That's a bad number. 4.1 million. Not good. not good at all. Oh, man, this is all so depressing. Anyway, there are quite a few media appearances that I've been involved with associated with this story that I'm probably going to be posting on the Reddit sometime soon, so you can get a better idea of what's going on with this story. I may also sort of stitch them all together to kind of form a coherent narrative of what stories have gone on through us, and I'll probably put that up as a podcast episode. And Chet and I will probably be doing return to this story sometime soon, and again, really trying to drive home the message that, like, this is a dangerous online relationship. You shouldn't be doing this. Having a digital scrapbook, as Jacquelyn calls it, is probably not a very smart idea. And as another commenter said, I wonder if the Rolling Stone article is going to make it into the digital scrapbook, because that's what a scrapbook is. It's not just photos. And a lot of people have commented as well, as just one last point here. If you're going to do a digital scrapbook, for whatever reason, if you're going to trust TikTok to have all these photos of your child, you can have it be private. Okay? You can have it be private. You can not choose thumbnails that are kind of sketchy and questionable. And you can have that scrapbook for just yourself instead of monetizing it and, yes, exploiting your daughter. I look forward to see what else comes out about this story, because I'm not about to back away from the story just because the mother put out some sort of bizarre, robotic, script reading, not even apology, just statement. It's just a statement. There's a full version on our Instagram, TikTok Wren. It's got a few more points in it, and I'm not going to read it here because I've already gone through it enough, and going through the different points that are on there, sort of interspersed throughout the video version of her statement, will be a little bit choppy and confusing. So go ahead and look at it there, and you have a pretty good idea of where my feelings and comments are at this point. I'm not pleased, I'm not impressed, and I'm not deterred. So, thank you so much for listening, and if this story interests you, you can find my appearances with Lee Elsey on his SoundCloud. You can find my appearances with Chet on freedomondeck.com, and you can follow the Reddit for information and commentary coming out, because these people, a lot of them have been looking at this a lot, and I mean a lot longer than I have. These people have a lot more information than I have. So really go ahead and have a look at that community and find some information that will shock you. A podcast is, for most people, an audio medium, right? So I can't show you a lot of these things, but you're going to see it on the Reddit. So go ahead and head over that way and see what you can find, because I think it will draw you in a direction that is counter to the one that Jacquelyn is trying to draw you in. And in my opinion, we are heading more in the factual and responsible direction. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day.
'Cause there's nothing I want more than under the night sky. The animals as they go about their lives. Feel the fire warm my body, feel the mud under my toes. But tonight this hell keeps me enclosed. For if we don't have our freedom, if we are captured by their iron hands, then the vision for fire, it burns so much more bright. There's no justice in this system, a bigger cage is still a prison. Well, I hope that somewhere someone breaks free tonight.